Hi, it's been a minute since I was on here, and I have had. This has been a strange last few days. For one, I saw that a long time ago, Jon Stewart had The Daily Show, and then he left it to have a farm, which, personal choice, good for you, but he's back. And so far, I've only seen him on YouTube. I was like, hey, there's Jon Stewart. Oh, look, he's talking about, if you want to see this, you could just YouTube Jon Stewart and the stock market. So, in a 20-minute break, I got to see that Jon Stewart was back. And then he told me that my pension is likely going to be gone by the time I get to start collecting on it because of what they're doing to it. So that started. Dark pools. Dark pools. What the hell? Anyways. So that started my days of dread. I've been pretty tired lately. I've been needing this break just for a minute to heal. I work construction. And I'm getting old. So it's easy to need a little bit of a break. So it started the dread, right? Because the last few days have been dreadful. Just in your mind, hard to find the hope in life. I don't know if you've been there. Probably. I think we all probably have been. And then yesterday was a weird day for me. I'm going to tell you about the afternoon first. I went and visited with a friend of mine, long time, great friend of mine. And while we're sitting there, we're discussing everything from politics to taxes to current events, and we whipped ourselves up into a pretty depressing state. Nothing like visiting with a friend and getting each other depressed. I kept quoting to her. I watched Bill Maher yesterday morning, so now we're yesterday still, and I'm going backwards in time to the morning. Bill Maher last Friday did a show. Beautiful guest, by the way. Oh my goodness, she was cute. Probably married. Not trying to be offensive or anything, but one of the points he made was, of course, he's also talking about dread, but for him it's the state of our politics. And I don't want to talk about our politics, but for him, in his setting, the dread for him is in politics. And his beautiful guest kept talking about how we should try and salvage the good things that we've accomplished with our society, the United States. And she kept talking about it as if it's done. These are the days that it's ending. Which I thought his closing remarks, the new rules, were perfectly timed for that. All those responses about how this is probably coming to an end, we should remember the good things we did and try to hold on to those. And he gave a talk, his new rules was about how that's enough of this. Well, if things don't go my way, I'm leaving this country. It's been said a lot. Hell, I think in one of my initial videos, I even said that, I had this plan. The problem with my plan was I saw it all. The final product, what it could be like eventually at the end. And to describe something like that is damn near impossible, especially for someone like me. So in the 2.5, 3 years since that, I have tried to find the things that would lead to that vision being possible. And I've winnowed it down and trying to find the starting place. But I originally said that I don't think it could be done here in the United States. And I think I'd like to retract that. Because what Bill was saying was we need people whose perspective is that, hey, I'm here. I am here. A lot of what I know, think, feel, and see is because I lived here in this incredible moment of grace. My life has been spent in a time on this planet where human consciousness has exploded. It's confusing, it's irritating, it's baffling sometimes, but it has exploded in the time that I've been on this planet. This is one of the greatest times to experience human consciousness growth that has ever been. You could give arguments for the Renaissance. You could give arguments for the beginning of the Enlightenment, what started this whole ball rolling. But the explosive nature now is without comparison. In my time, there has been discovery after discovery after discovery, not just in physics or math or agriculture or any of the things that get so much notice. There's been an explosion in thought. Not only the explosion in thought, but the ability to communicate that to so many other minds. I don't know if you like to watch documentaries of history, but when our particular time in history is recorded 1,000 years from now, one of the biggest things they're going to say about my generation is we gave you, not me personally, obviously, but my generation gave us the internet. And initially it was a thing of hope. It was a thing that inspired hope. It was a thing that drove hope. It grew hope. And I also live in a time when that engine of connection and hope has been turned into this weird psychosis-inducing negative impact on our consciousness. See, when I tell you that the definition of consciousness is an organic process, ongoing. It's going right now as you watch this, when you turn this off, when you call me an idiot or tell me I should have plucked that hair. It's still growing. I can't stop it. You can't stop it. None of us can stop it short of some weird fucking surgical intervention. An organic process, magnetically driven or fueled. That is the key from the internet right now. If your consciousness is being magnetically driven, it's because you are chasing your tail, because this ultimately powerful tool generates more profit to get you to chase your tail. But the definition is fueled or driven. If it's driven, if it's being forced, if you're just being driven to chase your tail and that's as far as you get, I don't even think anybody truly chases their tail 100% of the time. If you can just give yourself 5 minutes of reflection, just recognize those things, the memes that are in your consciousness that are just going around and around and around and around, whether it's insecurity or hate or distrust. Recognize them, and you can stop yourself from tail chasing and begin to be fueled by memetics. In other words, you're open to growth. You're open to finding solutions. We live in that time. It's up to us, especially if you have watched this. You now know the difference between driven and fueled. You now know the difference between stagnating your own consciousness and allowing it to flourish. I think that's huge for us. But remember, the last few days have been about dread. I think Bill Maher's got it right. We need people that will focus on trying to build something different. When I tell my friends that I have a solution for the ecosystem of this world, I had that solution already. This challenge is to make it understandable, for one. Not easy with my own character flaws. To make it commercially viable, because we live in a world with an economy that requires constant growth. People talk about the wealth gap, and they talk about how they'd like to do something about it. Our economy requires a wealth gap. If you work on a trickle-down method, and there were years where I blamed all of our strife economically on that trickle-down model, where the few require the income to disperse it, let's hope assumingly, fairly, and I've had terrible bosses in my life, and I now have a really, really good boss. A boss that I can respect, which is a new experience. Well, almost a new experience. I had one previous. But by and large, when you're talking about people just don't want to work anymore, they don't want to work in the environment that we've put up with. That's not what they expected going into into the workplace. The opportunities that are available, the people in charge of those opportunities, the requirements, and just the BS you have to put up with just to make a living. We have diverse intellect with all these varied talents, but no way to discover them because the economy we are forced to work within pigeonholes and narrows and tries to make as many people as possible fit into those narrow margins. Forget your gifts, this is what you need. Forget your talents, this is what you have to do. Meanwhile, at the same time, we've got a diet that is destructive to the growth of consciousness. It is destructive to the health of our own bodies. Meanwhile, those who can't even afford the diet we have starve or live very, very uncomfortably. I know I talk from a place of position, a place of privilege. Meanwhile, if it's not pretty enough to present to the people that do go shopping, we destroy it. Metric tons all the time of food we just destroy because it's just not pretty enough to sell. How does somebody come up with a solution to all of that? And what kind of opposition would be found? Once a solution is found, who would oppose it and how would they oppose it? I tell you that my solution is let's go out and frickin' do it, because I'm a construction worker. That's pretty much our mentality. You give us a job and we take our talents and we go accomplish that job. And I've worked construction in Wisconsin my whole life. If you don't, there's this perspective about a Midwestern work ethic. And I didn't know, maybe that's true. But from the times I have gone out to other places in the country and worked, it is definitely true. So my perspective is a little bit skewed in that the people I work with, side by side, that I've worked with all my life, I know those people have this Midwestern work ethic. I know we have a different way of looking at things. We have a different way of looking at work, at hard work. I'm starting to ramble a little bit here. And I do have a point to get to. Remember, it's my generation that gave us the internet and social media. What I'd like to think we might have is a collection of newly wealthy people that don't fit into that generational wealthy, the people who have been wealthy and had gotten wealthy off of whatever, whether it be prohibition or land or former kingdoms like empires that have since crumbled, but that wealth is still in place. I'd like to think that we now have a section of wealthy people who are just new to it. And one thing I notice, and I'm not trying to call them out because they are both part of the problem and possibly part of the solution, but like people like Google had at one point a motto, "Don't be evil." It seems odd that forget judgment. If there is this new section of wealthy people who are not as set in their ways as the ancient money, the long, old money that's been in power, can those people truly be given a vision? Look, I would like to get rid of the need for money entirely in our society. I would love to get rid of that, but it's not viable today or within the next 100 years. It's not viable. Everything runs on this shit. I don't want to approach the people with money because I don't know how to interact with them. I'm not one of their kind. But if you are one of those, somehow you've come to see this, if you truly desire not to be evil, there is a solution to this freaking world. To the state of dread that we find ourselves in right now. One of the problems I have, I don't want to talk about politics, but one of the problems I have is it seems like there's this undercurrent, sometimes it's not so far under, of this drive towards a conflict between us. Some people call it civil war. I don't know if something like that could actually happen anymore. I mean, I have cousins in Florida. Do you think I want to go to war with Florida? I have an aunt down there who has struggled her whole life. I don't want to go to war with our own people. I don't know that any of us really do. But that undercurrent is definitely present today. I think it's because of that stagnation. We have a powerhouse of a country. We have a model that drives us towards growth, which is our economy. That economy has been pressing people down and subverting the diversity of our intellect for so many years, for generations now. Any solution that we come up with to build something new has to address that. So let me give you an idea of what kind of thinking I'm looking for, what kind of problem solvers I'm looking for, what kind of intellectual focus I'm looking for. If I was to take nature, I live in Wisconsin. All my life I've lived here. I've driven by farms, I've helped on farms, I've had friends who were farmers. One of the kindest person I've ever known in my life, the person who had my back more than anybody else, was a farmer. And when you talk about big farm, not big pharma, big farm, and some of the problems we have with that, I want you to understand that a lot of those problems are because we lost a fight decades ago to save the little farmers. I don't know how many people, it's like it's almost forgotten. We lost that fight. Now we have these new problems to deal with. But we didn't just lose that fight. We collected a lot of data from that fight. We know the problems it caused. We know the problems it solved. Because there were problems that needed solving. Our economy needs to grow. And a whole bunch of people having input on their little plots of land is not as productive as one conglomerated, enormous freaking farm run by a smaller group of people who have a voice. I understand that that is our economic model, and the people that lost that fight, well, they lost to a pretty impressive enemy. It wasn't entirely on them that they lost the fight. It wasn't hardly at all on them. It was on all of us that that fight got lost. So, a piece of the diversity of our intellect got almost eliminated. There is, if you go on YouTube right now, you could find endless videos of people who are trying to revive the things that have been forgotten about how it is to live off the land. There are, like my friend that I was visiting with yesterday, she knows she would be much happier with her current life if she could spend her time with her hands in the dirt, growing, taking care of animals. I don't know. Do you have that feeling too? How many of us would be much happier with that existence as opposed to living in our little apartments and worrying about about surviving? But surviving in a way that just is not conducive to our own intellectual talents, our own spirit. If you are one of those people that thinks you could be much happier with your hands in the dirt, growing something, or one of those people that derives joy from using your specific intellect to prepare the food that other people that you and love enjoy, these pieces of intellect have become very specific and refined, almost like only the influencers, only those lucky enough to be part of something, or lucky enough to be in a position of privilege where this is how they live their life. These things are being lost, or diminished, or relegated to very specific niches. They tell you that immigrants do the jobs that we don't want to do, but is that true? Is that true? Is it true that nobody who's watching this video would like to live their lives on a crew of people who go out and tend the fields, or animal husbandry, or none of you would like those jobs if they were actually valued in such a way that you could create a living off of it? None of you? That's just something nobody wants to do? I think that's false. I think the settings of it are not conducive to allowing for that flourish of intelligence, of creativity. So, my ideas are based around power generation and changing the way our power grid works. What they should have done, what the Elon Musks of this world should have done before they built cars that we have to if your battery dies, we have to tow a diesel powered generator out to charge you up so you can go on your merry way. It's backwards. Those brilliant minds should have put their mind towards the power grid first, and not what requires the grid. But my ideas are also around nature, because I believe that we've trashed this freaking planet, and we don't have to trash this planet, and it is salvageable. I believe that there is a calling to do that for those who live their lives based in faith. I believe that you are called to do that, to try and, if nothing else, try to nudge your society towards that direction. Away from the society that just beats each other up with power, cleverness, and money, and into the society that lives organically, that can still grow and communicate. You don't have to go back to this, we all just live simple lives, and that's fine for some people. That's joy for some people. You don't have to be just simple. I don't want us all to go back to just freaking 200 years ago where this is how our society functions. Look what we have that can be added to it. We have logic problems like this. I live in Wisconsin. Again, I've probably said that 100 times. Right next to my house, a couple blocks away, is the Rock River. One of the problems with the Rock River, aside from all the industry that's on it, is we have a carp infestation. How do you solve, like if I was to set up a position to start this community, it would have to start out small because I can't give you the designs that start at a statewide level. I have to give you the designs that happen at a community level. I have plans that go all the way out to the continent level, but and beyond really. But we need to start smaller so that it's digestible, so it's understandable. If I was to create a power plant / food / if I was to start my plans, it would be around a river. And since the Rock River is right here, I'm going to use it as an example. How do we clean up our water sources? How do we reverse the damage that is done? And once we reverse the damage, see, a lot of the things I would like to do would make other people very upset. And if I was to clean up the Rock River, it's easy for someone to sabotage me by going further north and introducing something that sabotages the work I do. So when I tell you that I'm not looking to simplify our society, I'm looking for simplicity to be an option if that's what makes you happy, but I'm also looking for the clever people. One of the ways to sabotage a clean ecosystem in a river format is carp. We already have that problem. Simple solutions acted on collectively by us. One of the answers to carp is turtles. Understand that the answer to a problem that is destroying our ecosystem is by reviving a part of our ecosystem that we've allowed to fall into decay. That's the kind of thinking I'm talking about. I'm talking about clever people, because there are very smart human beings on this planet who right now their only option to exercise that cleverness is to become one of the 1%, one of the people who allows their cleverness to generate income, which they trickle down if they're feeling generous. I need those clever people to stop fucking around with money. There are other things to challenge your brain with on this planet. And I couldn't stop. After the Google search, I was like, well, that's the problem with the Rock River. One of the tributaries to the Rock River is the Bark River. Imagine if the Bark River were just, I know there's people that live on it. I realize that there's ownership, there are property rights there. But what if the Bark River suddenly became the Turtle River, and by weight of that helped to cleanse out the Rock River? A lot of my friends are fishermen. And a lot of my fishermen friends are very clever. One of them is just a genius when it comes to math. Could you people find enough intellectual curiosity and inspiration to make this way of living something that's worth it to you? How many people do I know that are doing jobs that they just despise in order to make money, for, as Tyler Durden said, doing jobs they hate to buy shit they don't need? Whereas, wouldn't you prefer to live your lives, and I'm talking to specific people now, wouldn't you prefer to live your lives with these are the problems that you tackle, and then at the same time you get to go back to the river that you helped clean up, get better fish out of it, eat healthier. If technology and nature are both used simultaneously to solve the problem we've created on this planet, you don't have to give up anything. You could live that simple life and still have global communication. If you build the power grid the way I talk about building the power grid, with many points of generation being distributed out to the users as opposed to very specific, very dirty, very harmful, expensive points of generation with mass distribution on the outside. If you reverse that, and maybe I'm only talking to people that I would live around. I mean, I've lived here. I know a lot of people who love to fish and hunt. I know a lot of people that are just disappointed with what's available for that. How many miles do you travel if you live in Chicago to get decent hunting? You come here, and then you go farther north up to hunt where it's still closer to pristine. At one time, I am trying to discuss this to entice the people of my generation with that new wealth to finance it. And I'm also talking to people like me who have done these jobs, that have worked with their hands their whole lives, that on their weekends they go fishing or hunting or enjoying the nature. We have a lot of beautiful nature in this state. Don't you fuck that up anymore. But would your spirit be better served if these were the problems you were working to solve? Would it be too daunting for you, for anybody, to realize that they're trying to accomplish this, that they've set their lives to solve these problems, knowing that in their lifetime they will only see incremental change? What I'm talking about here is 100 years from now, when people watch a documentary talking about our generation. Right now, what they're going to talk about is what we did to our economy, what we did to our planet, and social media, what we did to ourselves with what should have been this amazing gift. Wouldn't it be better if 100 years from now that documentary didn't say about all these freaking negative things that we did to screw everything up, but it said this was the time that we stopped, we looked at the world, and we said this is all fixable? Will they see a documentary that says, oh man, and the United States spent decades over in the Middle East trying to nation build when they didn't have an idea of how to nation build in their own home? You want to be a world power, but you want to do it at the expense of your happiness. We are a world power, and we are doing it at the expense of our bodies, our health, our diet, our intellectual stagnation due to lack of opportunity that is in focus. You want to talk about education? We have known that our educational system was built for the Industrial Revolution, and it has not changed very much since then. That is part of the pigeonholing problem for intellect. But if you start to build your communities to fix the environment, to generate energy differently, to allow the diversity of intellect to bloom rather than to be, well, it's good that you like that sort of thing, but this is what you need to do to pay your bills in life. What if those documentaries show that this is where we started to take all these disparate and seemingly unconnected solutions, to combine them, to winnow out the ones that work here, and maybe they work there better, or they just don't work here, but they do work there. Originally, I thought that we would need projects that the scope was on the continental scale. But if you do this, and this is to the social media people, right? If you do this, you not only need smart people to think about how to reverse the problems, you not only need the resources to do that, you not only need the fostering of various intellects that are currently unusable, you need somebody to tell that story as it happens. Because somebody will be telling the negatives. That's one thing we know about this world. If I were to start this project, there would be plenty of opposition talking about how, oh, well, we did it this way. Oh, well, we did it that way. Oh, well, we did it this way. Oh, but look, this. What you need is social media at place in the development, in the projects. Look, maybe I don't want to be an influencer. I don't. That's not what I want to do. I want to think about these problems. I don't want to talk on here. I want to be out there meditating and just discovering new solutions to these problems. But some people really want to be influencers. Some people can really talk to other people. They can communicate their messages in such a way that they inspire people. We need them too. Diversity of intellect needs to be fostered, and it needs to have opportunity to grow. And that includes all of these weird things that we've discovered in the last couple decades. What if you started this project today and 20 years from now, sitcoms and dramas that are streaming on our televisions took place inside of these projects? That's what you need in order to take a small scale project and inspire another project right next door or right in the state next door. Or you need to do it in such a way that it inspires other people to do the things that you do. You need to have people there, influencers, that show, look, this is the problem they faced. This is how long they faced it. These are the problems that caused it, that added to it, that made it the solutions hard to find. But this is the solution they found, and look how it works. That way another community that has similar mind can look at that and say, look, that's what they did. That would work perfect here. You can't nation build the way we tried. What did we try? We lost pallets of $100 bills because we are in this mindset that if we give somebody in a position of power a pallet of $100 bills, they will allow that to trickle down and it will grow their society without much work on our end. We just threw money at it, hoping the right thing would be done. Of course we didn't nation build in the Middle East properly. Of course not. What did we offer them? Schools we know aren't productive for our way of life, even at home. Roads. Oh, look, I'm 40 minutes into this video. Turtles, right? Yeah. I love that. Just sitting here contemplating a problem, like if I was to do a project like this, thinking of the vulnerabilities, the vulnerability I come up with is the one that's obvious because it's already in place. A quick Google search. My thinking was, well, what else performs that function? Turtles. I remember this from when I was a kid on the Bark River, fishing in the Bark River campgrounds. I remember seeing it. I didn't understand it at the time, but I understand it now. And I thought, well, would turtles do it? A quick Google search. And I didn't go any deeper next. I wanted to make this video, but right there, yeah, it's viable. So if I was already in place in this project, I could say, hey, I need somebody to talk to me about turtles. If I was to come on here right now and tell you that I have a problem I want to fix, I want somebody to tell me about turtles, and you can come out, talk to me about turtles, and we can actually change the face of a river to, I don't know, let's just start small, a mile-long stretch that you engineer around it just to breed turtles that can then filter out down the river If it's done in the Bark River, they float right down into the Rock River. Increasing diversity, building a robust natural system. And maybe it's not turtles. That's just the example for today. I mean, maybe it's a different kind of plant. Maybe it's a different kind of weed. Maybe it's a different kind of insect. This is the kind of thinking we need to talk about. Big farms gave us overuse of pesticides and tainted water that feeds the livestock, that poisons the people who buy the meat. These problems are solvable if you built the community small at first. If you had the right influencers, if you had the right focus, could a community feed surrounding communities and through that food inspire them to follow the example? Could the happiness of the people that work on the project, because they are now being asked to use their actual gifts and talents to make a living, inspire people in communities that surround the project to follow suit, to help, as opposed to the natural urge for our economy is to sabotage it because it's changing things. It's affecting the way money is distributed. So of course there will be people who want to sabotage it. Can you use a project like this to inspire? When people talk about things like this, they're usually coming from this far leftist perspective where they also believe things like you shouldn't have guns and shit like that. But let me tell you about humanity. We are not just thinkers, we are fighters as well. I'm not someone that thinks you should do a project like this and then leave yourself to be this open and vulnerable sheep. You need to be protected. You need to have people who believe in the project, that believe in what we are building for the future, and are willing to, because somebody's going to live upstream from you. If that person hates you, you are vulnerable to that person. If you can inspire that person because we want what you want, that person will be a protector for you, whether or not they can be part of the project or not. It can't be in your face. We're going to beat you up with this whether you like it or not. It has to be done in a way that inspires the people upriver from you, that inspire the people that can directly affect your project. It can't be done by some dictator. It can't be done by one man alone. It certainly can't be done by me. But it needs to be done by us. And we need to make a persuasive argument that says, look, this is actually going to work. This will improve things. And maybe it will not improve things for you directly right now because you're not part of the project. Maybe it will be elitist to be part of the project. You can't have that. Diversity of intellect and the happiness, the actual being happy with your life and what you are doing with it has to be a part of it, without creating a religious nature of zealotry. It has to be genuine. And I believe that if you believe this is a creation, if you have faith that this was created by God, you know that He has built it with using certain tools. We can recognize those tools. We know. I'm telling you, if this is created, there is a mandate for you to help with the problem. 45 minutes in. Most people fell off a long time ago. Look, this week started out with dread. With that little bit on Sunday morning watching Bill Maher. Yes, Bill Maher helped to inspire me to decide that my perspective was wrong. I didn't think that this could be done here. I thought we are too distracted in this country to be able to be in any way effective in being a part of the solution. That we had driven ourselves into a pigeonhole where we can only be part of the problem. Thank you, Belford, for just simply saying we need people who are willing to stay and fight for something that is better. Whether or not those people will actually get to see the fruits of their rewards or not. Because I know even if I started right now, I would never be able to live long enough to see the original vision that I had. It's just, there's too much work to be done. And if there is too much work to be done, it means you need help. If you need help, you need to be able to, but I want to fix it. I don't want to force people to fix it. That's the route that we're in right now. That's the method we use right now. We force people to do crap they don't want to do for things they don't need, or just forget the things you don't need. It's the more we force our economy to work this way, the more it'll be, I have to work 2 jobs with a freaking household of people, all they're working 2 jobs just to make ends meet. Forget about the Mercedes, forget about the fancy phones, forget about all this. Just to feed us, we all need to work 2 jobs and a part-time job with a side gig. You can't avoid that with our current economic model because it requires growth. And it is far easier to grow if you manipulate the circumstances in such a way that you are allowed to use many, many more people. That's how the growth works. It needs to be inspirational. It needs to speak to people's actual well-being and happiness. They have to be able to have options that allow them to be effective in the cause they've signed on for and still be able to make a living. I think it should start around power generation and food. That would be the ideal way to go. Solving 2 birds with 1 stone. I'd highly recommend that you make this entirely new. Fuck racism, fuck sexism, fuck all this bullshit that we distract ourselves with. Now, I know that these are real issues. I also know that I have a strong feeling that if you just agree that these things really shouldn't be the problem, we should just, why the fuck is there still racism? Because we're still using the same system that racism built. Fuck that. Start it over with a new plan, a new directive, a new direction, a new focus. And fuck all those problems that have haunted us for hundreds of years, thousands of years, whatever it is. I get it. I am a construction worker who's been preaching at you for now 50 minutes, damn near an hour. No, I'm not elegant about this. When my boss tells me he needs something done, what he needs to do is tell me what it is and give me the materials to do it, and I will go do it. That's the mentality, the work ethic I've had my whole life. That's what's been needed for me to put food on the table. So no, I'm not elegant like many of the people that you will have speak to you. Either way, it's almost an hour. So it's an hour in, or 50 minutes in. I'm going to do another video right after this one. So there's a bunch of ideas that are floating in my head, but if you've made it this far, I've just pretty much preached at you for 50 minutes. Understand that the guy you've just spent 50 minutes of your life listening to is not perfect. I have made so many mistakes in my life. But they've led me to where I am now, that 50 minutes of speech completely out of my nature. One of the problems we have with the society and the way it's growing right now is that any good cause, any good idea is easily fractured by allowing anybody's perspective, including mine, to gain notoriety or to gain power or to gain influence. We have made ourselves vulnerable to these easy fracture lines. If we're going to do this, let's say, I'll give you a fantasy. Say I make this silly video, and the right person sees it at the right time, and they have the means to make something like this get started. It has to be done in such a way that I've talked about it being robust, because most of my solutions are based in nature. Nature, when not robust, is very fragile. And right now, any progress is very fragile because of all of these shouting voices. I recognize that I may be one. What we need is a vision. What we need is a direction. And what we need is actual change. If you remember, Barack Obama ran as president on this change and hope. After 8 years in office, and I remember watching this guy. He was a kid when we elected him practically. I mean, he looked like a baby-faced kid. Very handsome, don't get me wrong. But at the end, my word, we watched him age in front of our eyes. The stress of that job took one of our most handsome and influential people and just aged him and beat him down. And at the end of it, we still have all these problems. I just wonder if there isn't a group of people out there that are just like, we have everything we need materialism-wise. We have everything we need. We just don't know what the fuck to do with it. If I was to have a fantasy about it, it would be that the right people came in at the right time and they made it all happen. But at the same time, anything that is done so quickly and perfectly and fantastically is vulnerable to these fracture lines. It cannot be, just something we're doing. Hey, look, they're trying something, they'll probably fail at it. Everybody's a pessimist. Now, this whole conversation started from recounting a place of dread. Even the most fantastic of outcomes, driven by anything I might say, is vulnerable to so many things. There are so many ways to stop it. There needs to be a reason to do it. There needs to be actual change as a result of this work. If it's ever going to build that robust characteristic. There has to be, for every voice that shouts from within that this is what's happening and it's just terrible and evil, there has to be many voices that say, look, this is how my life was before this. This is how my life is now. If you're going to tell me that this is evil, you're going to have to prove it, not just shout about it. If this is how I see, if I don't live on the project, if I'm just on the periphery and I am watching to see how this will affect my life, if I am watching and I see positive gains in the growth of and happiness and health of the people participating in it, and seeing that, one of the things all right, I know I'm getting off the subject here. One of the things I saw in the Old Testament when I went through reading it was that one of the ways they were commanded in which to build their fields was so that on the periphery of their fields, that shit was just for the poor. You didn't harvest that. That was for the people who were destitute, for the people that really needed it. Which is kind of annoying to me that we throw away all this freaking good food because it's not pretty enough to be presentable to the people who actually can afford it. But anyways, forget about that. And if you watched Our Planet, there was this episode about coastal seas and about the revivification of a coral reef, or the revivification of certain select areas of the ocean, where when inside of it, the growth of nature and the robust nature is such that on the outsides, on the edges of these protected areas, the fishing is so much better because just the spill off from this healthy environment. If you do a project like this, what you need to show is that the people on the outside looking in see this spill off that adds to the happiness of the people that are affected by it, but not part of it. That is a lesson learned from nature, continued on to a project which we're trying to heal our society, our planet, our environment, our health, everything. Look, there are a lot of problems in this world. A lot of problems, from human trafficking to fraud to graft to greed to simple things like just reacting. I say if we're going to try and solve one, why not try and solve many of those problems? If you can start a project like this and on the periphery life is increased in happiness, maybe you found a way to funnel human resources differently. Maybe instead of locking up an enormous portion of our society in prison, there are other ways to use that intellect. There are other ways to use that energy. For every problem we face, there are solutions readily at hand. That would be a fantasy. Like, I've taken up an hour of your time, and if somehow you got here via the algorithm, like you've been on YouTube for hours and just went dark, deeper and deeper and deeper into these weird persuasive holes, that's a trap. It's not helping you grow your consciousness. It's not helping you become more happy. If before you got to this, you were frothing at the mouth, sure that you are right, sure that there is specific and known evil that you need to be angry at, I'm telling you that it's it's a problem of our focus. And that energy you feel in your rage and your reactionary thinking is harmful, but it could be useful. That's a lot of human energy that could be redirected. I don't think we understand the power we have because it's been so misused. All right. Thank you. I hope it was helpful. Try not to live in dread. If you are in dread, there are ways we could change this shit. Have a good day.